Hello everyone, and welcome to my final part of my ECE 5000 design project. Today we're going to demonstrate and verify that my total system works correctly. So my project is a Raspberry Pi and Xbox Series X controlled retro gaming console that uses the Batocera Emulator to allow for games to be played from anywhere from the 1980s to the early 2000s. In today's video, we're going to briefly go over the controller and how it works. We're then going to go into the wiring required to make the system work, and this will include just power to the Raspberry Pi and the HDMI connection. Once everything is connected, we're going to load up the emulator, and we're going to show off the main menu and some of the settings. And then finally, we're going to do a playthrough of a couple different games. This will include a couple older games from the 1980s, Nintendo 64 and Game Boy. And then we're going to move into some more new games such as PlayStation 1 on the PlayStation 1 console. Overall, this video will show a full demonstration of the working project, and I hope you guys enjoy. So I will first briefly go over the controller and how it works. So here we have an Xbox Series X controller. And if we flip it over, we can see within the Xbox Series X controller, we have a Raspberry Pi Zero, which is embedded within the system, and it is attached so it cannot come out. And then finally, to allow for the controller inputs to be connected to the Raspberry Pi, we have a USB-C to micro USB connector. And this is the shortest cable I could get. This cable is 20 centimeters long, and it allows for the system to be less bulky. This system only consists of a little bit of cabling, only 2 cables specifically, and then a display monitor. So our first cable that we use is the Raspberry Pi power supply, as we can see here. And this is a micro USB adapter here, and this switch here basically allows for the Raspberry Pi to be turned on and off. We also have an HDMI cord, and this HDMI cord connects directly to the micro HDMI connection on the controller. So once these cables are connected and it is connected to the display, we can boot up the system. So now that we've made the 2 connections, as I previously had mentioned, we can turn the controller over. And first we have to power on the Raspberry Pi and the controller. And this can be done with the switch. This will allow for the controller to be manually turned on as follows. You can see now that's turned on. And finally, we just have to turn on our display. And we can see the emulator begins to load up. After about a minute or so, the emulator will load up. It takes a little bit of time. And we can see it's starting to configure and load in all the games, as well as the operating system itself. And now we are in the main menu of the emulator. The first thing I'll check is to make sure that the Raspberry Pi is connected directly to my laptop. So we can go to network settings, and we have to enable the Wi-Fi. And turn it back on. Takes a moment. And now we're connected, and I will show what files are available to be changed on my laptop. Switching over to the laptop now, under our computer network folder, we're going to click on Batocera. And we have to enter the credentials, which is just a simple password. Once that's loaded, we're given with the share folder. Underneath the share folder, we can see all of the data that is stored on the Raspberry Pi and the emulator. So we see things like menu music, ROMs, which are basically the game files. as well as we have a variety of other things that remain mostly unchanged, such as BIOS. This allows you to add things such as screenshots for like the front cover of a game, as well as things like themes. This would be the main menu theme and whatnot. But the only main thing that's been changed for this emulator has been the ROMs, where I have added a variety of games, which we will see shortly. So now we're just going to go over the main menu and some of the settings that come with this emulator. So the first thing we'll go over is the game settings. So here we can update our game lists if we add any new ROMs for games we want to play, and some other minor settings. The next thing I'll show is how to map this specific controller. Now this only has to be done once, but for this demonstration I'll show how to do it. This was also showed in my last video. So we'll go to under controller mapping, and that's okay. So the first thing we have to do is press any button on the controller. And now we can start configuring as follows. So as for each one of these, I click the corresponding button, and this will map the controller. And now that's all done, we can press confirm. There's also some other options in here, such as if we had multiple Raspberry Pi controllers, we could configure 2 different controllers so people could play together. But for the sake of this project, it is an individual controller. There are some more settings, such as user interface settings. This has not been changed, as this was the original theme set I had downloaded when I first started up the emulator. There's also game collection settings. So we have 12 different systems currently on this emulator. We have sound settings, which I have not touched. Network settings we briefly went over to connect the Raspberry Pi to my computer. And then there's some system settings below. So this will give you specific information on the system itself, similar to any modern console. And again, this has already been configured the way it's supposed to, and nothing needs to be changed here. So now I'm going to briefly go over the different consoles on this emulator, which are shown in the main menu. So we have Commodore 64, PC Engine, Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, which also includes GameCube, ports, which is a way to download personal computer games. Some of these ROMs are easier to access, so this is where they will be located. We also have Pygame, which exists as Python games. We have Sega Mega Drive, PlayStation, and then finally it'll show all games that are currently downloaded on the emulator, and favorite games, which is not in use. So the easiest way to show where all games are and the actual folder I will be demonstrating when I play these games is in the All Games folder. So we can click here, and now we can scroll through the games that we'll be playing today. We won't be playing all of these, but we'll be showing a variety of different games on some different consoles. So the first game we're going to play through is Classic Kong, and this is a Super Nintendo Entertainment System game. This was played through in the last video, but I think this is a great starting point, as it's one of the more classic games on this emulator. So we will play through the first level of the game. We can see the movement works as it's supposed to. The controller is correctly configured. And we've completed the first level. Now to return to the main menu, we'll just click the Xbox Home button and the Start button. So now that we're back in the main menu, we're going to load up into our next game, which will be displayed shortly. And this is a game on Sega Mega Drive, and this is called Old Towers. This is another older game, as we can see, 16-bit. So we'll play through the first couple levels of this game as well. And again, we can see that the controller configuration works well. So that was a little playthrough of the first 3 levels of this game, and again, everything works as expected. So we can return back to the main menu, same as before. So now we're going to be playing a bit of a newer game. This game's 3-dimensional, it's called Doom. So we can start a new game. We can play the first level. We'll play on the easiest difficulty. And this game does require a little bit more advanced movement, so it takes a little while to get used to. So again, we'll return to the main menu. So the final game I'll be showing off in this demonstration today is Gran Turismo 2. This is my favorite game on the emulator, as I like car racing games. This game was made in 1999, so it is a little bit more complex compared to the other games we've played. But I'm briefly just going to go over this game and the menu in it, as well as just play through one of the tutorials for the final part of this demonstration. So in this game, we can go to different cities and pick out different cars. And we can see there's different car dealerships. And from here, we can also choose different cars, new or used. So I'll just briefly go over and show some of the cars. So we can choose to purchase this. I currently do not have enough to be able to purchase any of it. So okay, so now we're going to actually play through a tutorial. And we'll play this one. And like I had previously said, this game is a little bit newer, so the Raspberry Pi does have a little bit of trouble making this game play really well. But we can see, and we can also see that the controls are a little bit advanced. But overall, the game does play pretty well. And now we can exit. And that is all for this game. So that concludes the demonstration and verification of my design project. In this project, I've learned a lot. I've learned how to deal with the Linux software, how to download game ROMs and set up, I guess, certain configurations so that the emulator works correctly. I also learned how to design and basically kind of re-engineer a controller so that I can fit the Raspberry Pi inside of it. Overall, I think this project went very well. I think there's a couple things that I would change if I was to do it again. The main thing would probably be to get a Raspberry Pi that has a little bit more computational power. This would allow me to download, I guess, newer games, maybe things such as like a Wii U or PlayStation 2 games, something in the early to mid 2000s compared to just the late 1990s and early 2000s. And overall, I think this project was a great success. And if you have any questions, please reach out.